A mother from a small town put her daughters to bed, but when she went to wake them the next morning, one of the girls was gone. The police jumped into action, and almost right away, they started finding strange and unsettling clues. Soon, the detectives pieced together the truth of what happened to this girl, but it was far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Jersey Bridgeman was born on November 14, 2006, in the small town of Bentonville, Arkansas. When she was 3, her parents welcomed another daughter, but soon after, they decided to get a divorce. Even after the split, Jersey still spent a lot of time with her dad. He eventually remarried and had 2 more girls with his new wife. Since he lived just a short drive away in a nearby town, Jersey would often stay over at their place for a few days before going back to her mom. In 2012, when Jersey was 5, she and her mom moved to a new house in the same town. Jersey and her sister quickly made friends with the neighborhood kids, and her mom's best friend lived only a few yards away. Their families were so close, they felt almost like one big extended family, and they spent a lot of time together. On November 19, 2012, less than a week after Jersey's birthday, her mom went to work her usual evening shift at the local supermarket. On nights like this, if her parents weren't available to watch the girls, Jersey's mom would sometimes leave them with her best friend. She didn't mind looking after them, especially since her own kids were friends with Jersey and her sister. That night, Jersey's mom finished her shift around 11:30 p.m., picked up the girls, and took them home to bed. Jersey fell asleep right away, but her younger sister wanted to sleep with her mom, so she took the girl along to her own room. The next morning, Jersey's mom woke up around 6:30 a.m. and went to get her daughter ready for school, but Jersey wasn't in her bedroom. The woman began searching the entire house and realized Jersey was nowhere to be found. Panicking, she called her own mother, telling her she couldn't find Jersey. Her mom suggested that maybe Jersey was playing hide and seek somewhere and told her to check closets and any other places she might fit in. Jersey's mom searched every corner of the house once again, but couldn't find her. She looked outside and saw her friend sitting on her front porch. Hoping Jersey might have woken up early and gone over to her house to play, the mother asked if she'd seen her. Since Jersey spent a lot of time at their place, it seemed possible. But her friend hadn't seen Jersey and immediately started helping with the search. They checked around the neighborhood, and her friend also looked inside her own house, but there was still no sign of Jersey. At this point, Jersey's mom was in full panic mode and decided to call the police immediately. Officers arrived within minutes and began their own search. They checked the house thoroughly to confirm Jersey wasn't there, then got permission from her friend to look through her house as well. Meanwhile, other officers started searching the nearby streets in case Jersey had somehow wandered off. During the search, they noticed a small vacant house next to Jersey's mother's property. The officers decided to check it, mainly because one of the doors was slightly open. After confirming that no one lived there, they quickly requested a search warrant. Investigators considered the possibility that Jersey might have gone inside, and a judge promptly granted them permission to enter the property. The officers searched each room but found no sign of Jersey, until one of them decided to check a closet in the bedroom. What he found was truly horrifying. Inside was Jersey's body, and it only took one look to realize she was no longer alive. Her clothes were missing and, from what they could see, it appeared that the cause of death was strangulation. The body was handed over to medical examiners and the police began their investigation. When they spoke with Jersey's mom, she mentioned that she left one of the front doors unlocked that night. She explained that she often did this because her boyfriend also worked night shifts and sometimes came by afterward to stay at her place. Since he didn't have a key, leaving the door unlocked meant he wouldn't have to wake her up. She added that he hadn't come over that night, and police immediately began considering him as a potential suspect. Since someone had taken Jersey to the abandoned house, it was likely she knew and trusted this person. Her mom's boyfriend got along well with Jersey and her younger sister. Whenever he was around, he spent a lot of time playing with the girls, and they both trusted him. While investigators looked into his whereabouts that night, they uncovered something else. About a year earlier, Jersey's biological father had faced some serious charges. In December 2011, Jersey was spending time at her father's house with his new wife. During her stay, a friend of the family was visiting and, one day, this person heard a child crying from behind a closed door. Curious and concerned, she opened the bedroom door to check what was going on. What she saw was truly shocking. Jersey was sitting there with a dog collar around her leg, tied to a dresser. The room was a mess, cluttered with dirty clothes and other stuff. Horrified, she freed Jersey and immediately reported what she'd seen to the police. Officers quickly arrested Jersey's father and his wife. During questioning, they claimed they'd been tying Jersey up at night for her own safety, saying she'd sometimes sleepwalk and try to grab some medications or even leave the house in the middle of the night. When asked why they didn't just use child gates, Jersey's father simply replied that they couldn't afford them. However, as the investigation continued, police found out that her father had been using drugs and somehow had enough money to buy them. He also wasn't working, despite the fact that he and his wife were raising 2 other children. Investigators spoke with Jersey, and she revealed the real reason they'd started tying her to the dresser. One night, she had gone into the kitchen and taken a few pieces of pie and some other snacks without permission. To punish the girl, her father and stepmother decided to tie her up. Jersey also told that sometimes she was forced to sleep on the floor in the bedroom without even being allowed to use the bathroom. In the end, Jersey's father was sentenced to 18 years and his wife received 12 years behind bars. Since then, Jersey had been living with her mother, who had no idea about all of this, as Jersey had been too afraid to tell anyone. This story, for obvious reasons, caught the detectives' attention, but they quickly established that Jersey's father couldn't have been involved, as he had been in prison since his arrest and would not have been able to be at his daughter's home that night. Investigators then turned their attention to all known sex offenders living within a few miles. Each one provided an alibi, leading the police to focus on people in Jersey's close circle. Around this time, the medical examiners completed a preliminary report confirming that the cause of death was strangulation. They also found evidence of SA and collected biological material from the perpetrator. This sample was sent to the lab for DNA analysis, while detectives turned their attention to Jersey's mother's boyfriend. He claimed that he'd been working at a store that night, and his shift didn't end until early in the morning. Police reviewed the store's CCTV footage, which backed up his claim. However, there was one problem. Detectives found that he had a break during his shift. Theoretically, he could have committed the crime as the store was only a few minutes away from Jersey's home. But his coworkers told the police that he hadn't left the store during his break, so detectives eventually ruled him out as a suspect. While speaking with the police, the boyfriend mentioned an interesting detail. Around 3 a.m., a man named Zachary Hawley, Jersey's mother's neighbor and the husband of her best friend, had come into the store. Zachary said he had stomach pains, bought some medicine, and left. Given that the crime seemed to have been committed around this time, police found this account quite suspicious. They had already spoken to Zachary and his wife and had searched their home, but didn't find any evidence. Initially, Zachary hadn't raised any suspicions, but with this new information about his late-night trip, detectives decided to question him again. Zachary confirmed that he did wake up in the middle of the night with stomach pain. Not finding any medication at home, he headed to a store just a few hundred yards away. When he got back, he eventually fell asleep again and woke up around 6:30 a.m. to get his older son ready for school. He also willingly provided police with his fingerprints, a DNA sample, and the clothes he wore to the store that night. Zachary insisted he would never harm Jersey, and the detectives believed he was telling the truth. While awaiting the DNA test results, the police decided to dig deeper into Zachary's background and uncovered a few intriguing details. First, they found that he had an extensive criminal record, though it was mainly for nonviolent, relatively minor offenses. Zachary also had a troubled past. Police learned that he had suffered various forms of abuse over the years from his family members, including his stepfather, biological mother, and brother. 13 reports had been filed by concerned people who noticed the abuse and wanted to help, but it's unclear if the police ever took action. Detectives then spoke with Jersey's mother to learn more about Zachary. She shared that he and his wife often helped look after the kids, and he got along great with them. Jersey and her sister even called him Uncle Zach. He was practically family. The girls visited his house almost daily. The mother also mentioned that both Zachary and his wife had keys to her home. Since Jersey seemed to trust Zachary completely and would have followed him anywhere without question, detectives began to consider he might be involved. They also grew suspicious of his late-night store visit, thinking it could have been a calculated move to create an alibi with witnesses and CCTV footage. When detectives brought Zachary in for another interview, he suddenly said he wouldn't talk without his lawyer. This shift caught investigators off guard, especially since he'd been fully cooperative just recently, doing everything they'd asked. With no solid evidence against Zachary, all the investigators could do was wait for the DNA test results and keep searching for new leads. But then, out of nowhere, came an unexpected twist. Despite his initial refusal, Zachary called the police, saying he was now willing to take a polygraph test to clear his name. Detectives immediately set everything up, but the results weren't in Zachary's favor. The polygraph operator determined that many of his responses showed signs of deception. This only deepened detectives' suspicions, but they still needed concrete evidence. They also discovered that Zachary's decision to take the polygraph test was prompted by his wife, who had apparently started to doubt his honesty. It turned out she warned him that if he refused to cooperate with the police, she would take the children and leave him. So, this sudden change wasn't really about Zachary trying to clear his name after all. Soon after failing the polygraph, Zachary took another suspicious step. He posted on social media saying he had made a huge mistake that would ruin his life. To detectives, this seemed like further confirmation of his guilt, yet they still needed some solid proof to move forward. The lab results came back on November 26th, 6 days after the murder. This was also the day of Jersey's funeral, and Zachary, along with his wife, planned to attend it. Forensic experts had extracted a DNA profile from the biological material found on the victim's body and analyzed all of Zachary's clothing. The results didn't surprise detectives. Nearly all of Zachary's clothes contained traces of Jersey's DNA, and the biological material on her body matched his DNA as well. With this crucial evidence, detectives obtained a warrant for his arrest and detained him right outside the church, just as the ceremony was about to begin. During the interrogation, Zachary continued to deny his involvement, saying he had nothing to do with it. But when detectives told him about the lab results, he ultimately confessed to the crime. According to his story, Zachary really did wake up with a stomachache that night and went looking for medicine, but couldn't find any at home. So, he decided to drop by Jersey's mom's place. For him and his wife, this wasn't unusual. They would often stop by to borrow medicine from her cabinet. Besides, Zachary knew she usually left one of the doors unlocked, so he wouldn't even need to wake her up. Once inside, he noticed that Jersey's bedroom door was slightly open and decided to go in. According to Zachary, he had no clear motive and insisted he didn't understand why he went in there. He woke Jersey up and asked her to come with him. Trusting him like family, Jersey didn't hesitate and followed. Zachary led her to an abandoned house nearby, where he committed his monstrous crime and left her body in a closet. Afterward, he walked to a store, bought some stomach medicine, and went home, where he was able to fall asleep without a care. The next morning, he joined the search for Jersey as if nothing had happened, pretending he was just worried and eager to help find her. Zachary also claimed he hadn't planned the crime and said it all happened on impulse, though detectives had doubts about that. Still, they had no reason to question the rest of his confession. He provided many highly accurate details that hadn't been made public. At that point, the police had kept almost all information under wraps, even from Jersey's mother, so there was no way Zachary could have known those specifics otherwise. In the end, he was charged with murder and held in jail awaiting trial. The prosecution announced they would seek the death penalty. As for his attorney, he didn't even try to argue Zachary's innocence. Given the confession and overwhelming evidence, it seemed like a lost cause. Instead, his focus was on getting a life sentence instead of the death penalty. It's worth mentioning that soon after Zachary was put in jail, another inmate attacked him. He wasn't seriously injured, though, and since then, he's been under increased protection. The trial began in the spring of 2015. 2.5 years after the murder. Since Zachary never recanted his confession, the proceedings moved very quickly. He was found guilty and sentenced to death, with 2 additional life sentences and an extra 20 years. Before the sentencing, Zachary spoke to Jersey's family, expressing deep regret for what he'd done and hoping they might one day forgive him. However, his apology didn't seem to have much effect on them. As often happens, executions are almost always delayed for many years, and Zachary's case was no exception. He made several attempts to appeal his sentence, initially claiming that his first lawyer hadn't even tried to exclude certain pieces of evidence and that the jury selection process had been flawed. His new attorney also argued that Zachary suffered from severe mental health issues and developmental delays. They claimed his mental capacity was equivalent to that of an 8-year-old, meaning he shouldn't be held fully responsible for his actions. Interestingly, even Zachary's own mother, who had mistreated him for years, came forward in his defense. In an interview, she said she still loved her son and hoped his lawyers could overturn his sentence. Zachary's wife, who was also the best friend of Jersey's mother, supported his appeal as well, even though she had previously condemned his actions. But, despite these efforts, the appeal was denied. Independent experts concluded that, while Zachary did show developmental challenges, he was fully capable of understanding his actions and knew he was committing a serious crime. Currently, Zachary remains in prison, still trying to appeal his sentence. The last developments in his case were in early 2024. But his lawyers have yet to convince the court to overturn the death penalty, and it seems unlikely that the situation will ever change. As for Jersey's mother, she eventually married the man she was dating at the time of the tragedy, and they had a daughter together. She regrets that this little girl will never get to know Jersey or experience what a wonderful older sister she could have been. Alright guys, share your thoughts on this story in the comments section, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching.